My guests today are Erika Hayden, who's the Senior Director of Quality Assurance at CCC Intelligence Solutions. Also, we're joined by Christine Mills, Director of Governance at Google Research, Google Labs. And finally, I'm joined by my colleague at Exadel, Carrie Dallas, who's our Vice President of Strategic Account Management. Previously Managing Director of Operations at Copi, a Seattle-based tech consultancy. Welcome, ladies. Thank you for joining me today. Let's get started.
Sounds great. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
So in the early days of your career, what was the one bet that you made on yourself that everyone else told you was a bad investment? Christine, do you want to kick us off?
Maybe the one thing I would tell you is that very early in my career, I had an experience that really shifted my perspective to what I have done in the past does not define what I am capable of in the future. Really thinking about that I am not limited by my past experiences. I'm only limited by what I'm capable of. And I got a lot of resistance to that in the beginning, for sure.
I love that. Erika, how about you?
I've just always been a driven person, and I'm never discouraged by what people say or think if it's a passion of mine. You know, growing up in a family of strong women, and I think it taught me that whatever I put my mind to, I can accomplish. And that has carried with me from my early years up until now. And starting my career in the 90s, as you can imagine, it's a little tough being the only female in the room once I hit management. But I knew that if I led with confidence, that I would be able to make an impact. And so that's just the way I've operated all my life.
Then you certainly have made an impact. Carrie, you're based in Seattle. What's the tech scene like there, and what trends are you seeing globally regarding women in leadership roles and women in tech?
I am surrounded by, both at Exadel and also my clients, so many women in leadership. And as far as tech goes in Seattle, it's an interesting time, and I am constantly seeing more and more women in leadership, and Exadel has definitely invested in that as well. So I'm very happy and hopeful.
Yeah, let's open that up. Christine, Erika, what about you?
Locally in Austin, I think there's a lot of pressure in the ecosystem. There's still lots of jobs. I think employees and candidates are being asked to differentiate themselves. I don't know that feels wholly different than what we've seen over the last decade. And there's still a lot of promise here in Austin. There are still companies that are investing here, still companies that are building here. This is one of the things actually I love about Google, is that I have been so incredibly surprised to see so many women. And Google has been very intentional about this and making sure that women are able to be successful, keeping in mind that many of us for many years have been the only women in the room. When I came to Google, one of the greatest signals that I was in the right place was that there was actually intentional dialogue about, hey, look, we actually have high attrition of women at senior levels. And we're gonna do our best to make sure we arm you to be successful. And that was a dialogue that was had with the women in the room, the new women leaders like me, and also with the men in the room. And so I have the privilege of working with and for some of the most awesome technical leaders in the world. Very, 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 very smart technical women who paved the way for people like me. And I didn't even realize it until I got here.
Wow. That must have had quite an impact on the ability to attract talent in such a competitive market.
I mean, I think I am particularly, I'm in the right place at Google at a really great time. If you go to any of the sites for, learning.google, sustainability.google, research.google, labs.google, you will see these are people who are changing the world in ways that we haven't even really come to grips with yet fully. And I do think by default, those are very attractive places to work, support women in careers. My boss is a woman, and she is one of the only women I've ever had as a boss, right? I can count on a couple of fingers the number of female VPs I've ever worked for. and I happen to have a female leader at this moment.
That's great.
When you look at the data itself, right, it will tell you it's less than 30% of women hold these executive and senior leadership roles, but it's been trending up. Definitely in the last decade, right? And as you ladies, I work for an amazing woman, VP, and I can hold up, on one hand how many I've worked for in my career, but it's promising. And when I look at my organization, what I've seen, and because I've been there for 25 years, I'm seeing more and more women coming into the organization, and it just makes me smile, right? I get very excited. And I also love talking with them to understand why CCC. So I do think we're moving in the right direction, and we'll continue to see women in these senior and executive, positions, I think, in our tech companies. And for me, young Black female engineers, I want them to understand that women do have a footprint in this industry.
And it's amazing to see you women still talking about the role models that you have, but actually you are the role models in your organization now for a whole host of women. Erika, it's a very male-dominated environment, software development and technology in general. Have you had examples or circumstances where you've had to maybe prove your technical credibility more so than your male peers? And what did that look like in reality?
Absolutely. I started in the 90s, and my first job was at US Steel, developing software for the line. So I put myself in a situation where it's all men everywhere, very few women. And every team that I worked with was all male. So I always felt that need to have to work harder. And there's low tolerance for failure or mistakes, which is insane, right? We are all human. We're going to make mistakes. But I felt when it came to my male counterparts, it was kind of glazed over. My issues or my shortcomings were glorified and just, right there in the spot, like, oh, you just didn't do this right. You need to do better. And I'm like, okay, I will. But why didn't my male counterpart get that same type of feedback when their issues came up? So I internalized that, and I said, okay, if I really want to work in this industry, I will show them, right? And I will make sure that my work speaks for itself. And that's what you have to do. That confidence is invaluable to us as females. We have to know that we are important, that what we bring is truly valuable to any organization. Our perspectives need to be valued. So I didn't take that as, okay, you don't want me here, I'll leave. No, I took it as, I'll challenge you. I'll show you what my next project, just how good it can be. But I shouldn't have to do that. Right? But we do sometimes as females, definitely earlier in my career. Not so much today. I've gone through the ranks a lot, but I do try to preach this again to very young women new in their career around understanding how to navigate these types of situations, because I think how we respond to that type of feedback is important, right? Don't be upset. Take it as constructive and then see how you can make the adjustments so that you don't feel devalued.
100%. And staying on that topic of a historically male-dominated environment, both finance that you came from, Carrie, and data privacy, where your background is, Christine, that's historically male-dominated. Have you noticed trends and seen changes in those specific industry areas aside from tech itself?
One of the things that was really interesting when I became involved in data privacy was just how many women there were. I think the intersection of those fields, privacy, security, and things like data, there's a bridge to the technical sides of those. And I do think those are still largely fields that women feel very intimidated by in certain cases. And I do think about that quite a bit. In terms of, you talked about what is our responsibility now. And, I think Karen, I mentioned to you when we met that I have now had the privilege of having people in my organization that are probably about the same age as my children. And I think one of the things that I really respect about these women, and my daughters are, if they ever hear this, they'll do a little cheer because we talk about this a lot. Like, they take no crap.
Mm-hmm. Good.
The things that I think many of us at a certain age had to do to survive, they are challenging us to put those ideas away.
Yeah.
And I think that is really, really important for us to look at as women leaders, to evolve, right? Our, the position of women in a way that doesn't sacrifice our power. I think I grew up in a culture where women were almost, in technical roles, were almost pitted against each other because there was a sense that there was only so much space at the table, right? And I just feel like we are now in a place where we can break those things down, and really put them where they live, where they belong, which is in the past. I think one of the things that I learned very early, maybe not early enough, but at some point I realized that there were certain techniques that I could apply so that I could feel empowered, right? And there were people who taught me that I wasn't powerless in these situations. There were things that I could do. There were techniques that I could apply without compromising myself. And so I really do, want women in this moment to feel their power, because we are so much more than I think we've been given credit for.
Younger generation can't imagine putting up with some of the things we put up with. It's just not even in their
Not at all.
can't imagine, which is
Oh my
cool.
Yeah, I say to people, I said to someone recently, like the best thing someone can do for me is to underestimate me.
I was going to say, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you want to share an example of one of those tips or techniques that you learned through your journey of how to navigate those situations, then I'm sure everyone listening would love to hear it, and I would love to hear it. I'm sure Erika and Carrie would as well, if you can think of any.
Yeah, I mean, one I think is, I think one goes back to that sort of fundamental principle of what you've done before does not define what you're capable of.
Yeah.
I think as women, we tend to we want to check all the boxes instead of looking at the breadth of our experience and figuring out what applies and what our superpowers are in any situation, knowing that no one checks all the boxes, right? No man in the room checks all the boxes. And they're daring and they have audacity and they've been trained and programmed that way to go, well, I check 25, 50, 30% of the boxes. I'm good. We need more of that. I think the other thing is information. I think there have been roles, there have been promotions I have been barred from because with very hand-wavy excuses. There have been times I have been held back in roles because my information was too valuable where I was, right? And so anticipating those barriers and really analytically looking at them is a superpower for a lot of women, to be able to anticipate the type of resistance that I will get, right? This is good program management, good risk management, good empathy skills, right? Whatever that is, to be able to put yourself in the shoes of someone else and go, okay, what's going to hold me back here? Is it that they can't see that I'm performing on a role profile description? Great. Let me help them connect those dots. Let me show them how I've done so. And maybe I'm 70, 80, 90% of the way there. Maybe I'm 60% of the way there. And the rest of them, I'm going to amplify my superpowers to overcome my opportunities. I think some of this is internal dialogue. We want to check all the boxes. We want to be 100% right and ready. Just to be comfortable with curiosity, being daring, being willing to fail. I fail all the time.
That's a super important point. And representation as well. We were talking about being the only one in the room. I mean, I'm super proud to say our data privacy officer at Exadel is a woman. Our VP of engineering is a woman. We've got many women role models and leaders in Exadel, and I think that's a great. And Carrie, you're testament to one of them, right? You're one of our great leaders. I want to pivot a little bit and talk about drivers behind career decisions. Carrie, you moved from finance management to account management, from dealing with numbers to dealing with people, I guess. What's been one of the biggest drivers behind the career pivots that you've made, and what's had the biggest impact, do you feel?
I've had very supportive leaders too. So both of our founders were men, but they believed, they were like, we're an echo chamber. The two of us are an echo chamber because we're, you know what I mean? So they wanted to surround themselves with different opinions. They always wanted to make sure that our voices were heard. I had a lot of roles. I have experience in finance, HR, everything before I ended up moving into account management. And I think that allowed me to see a lot of different perspectives. So I think that would kind of became my superpower, right? I could put myself in the shoes of the CEO because I worked with them on a daily basis. And when I moved into account management, it was kind of a natural leap to make because I'd been having my internal stakeholders and then my clients became that for me. So I think my leaders have always tried to never stifle me, tried to pull more out of me. Like, we want to hear more of your opinion. You just feel valued. And I hope to be that leader for my team and support them and just want to hear more. And I had a team of all women account managers when we first transitioned, when Exadel took us over and I moved into account management. Mostly offshore. We went from a local company to a global company and women from all over the world, but we're all wives and moms and we're all just trying to do a good job and learn. And that was a great catalyst to move into Exadel and realize I want to stay here. Like, it's not copy eye anymore, but it's that positivity and support has been great.
That's great. Erika, 25 years at one company. It's a huge it's a huge commitment in an industry where people jump around every 2 years or so these days. And there's clearly something very interesting and engaging that's keeping you at CCC Intelligence Solutions. What's the core principle or mission behind that? And how has it been critical to your leadership journey, especially through, I guess you've seen multiple tech revolutions, right? How have you sustained and kept engaged?
Well, I'll start by saying I also was a jumper early in my career.
Me too.
Right? Because that was the way you got to learn new things quickly.
Yeah.
Right? And change didn't happen so fast as it does today. So I acquired a lot of knowledge by going from company to company. But once I got to CCC, I'll be very honest with you, it's been the people. I work with some amazing people. And through my prior companies that I work with, I don't know that I always was developing those long lasting relationships. Even if I was at the company for 2 years, it was still just about the working relationship. What I found at CCC is that we pour a lot into one another. Right. And it's not just to have high engagement. I think it's truly because people want to get to know you. And it has helped us, as you pointed out, we've gone through so many tech elevations, I'll call them, over the years. And so every time we would do that, right, it was an opportunity for us all to learn together, right? Because we weren't coming from the outside with that experience. We were learning the new technologies together. And it built a really great culture within our organization. And so I think that's one of the main things that really keeps me there is the people and knowing that there's always these new opportunities. There's a new opportunity around the corner every day, right? You just have to look for it. The other thing I would also say is I've seen many people who have left the company, right? Grass isn't always greener on the other side.
Right. Yeah.
They come
Very
back.
true.
They come back and they're always talking like, hey, how are things going at the company? Oh, it's great. We're doing this now. They're like, oh man, I didn't know you guys were like, they love it. And so I can't put anything past my number one being the people at this company. As many times as we may have changed some of our leadership, the foundation, the people that are there continue to grow, continue to mature, and we do it together. So I love that. And that's why I stay there, because I can go and learn new tech anywhere.
Very true. Very true. I want to shift now into some maybe a little bit more uncomfortable questions, but I trust that you ladies are ready for them. So, Carrie, what personal value have you been asked to or refused to compromise during your leadership journey?
I would say just being a good human being.
Sure.
And do the right thing. And that's never the wrong choice, you know? And my brother he's in high finance and wealth management. Early in his career, he made a mistake and he went to his boss at the time and was like, you know, I made this mistake. What should I do? And he said, figure out what the right thing to do is and do that. I don't care what it costs. I don't care what just do the right thing. And I remember that so much. And then he's grown into that same leader. And that's kind of who I've chosen to work for too. I've worked for people that just do the right thing. Right?
Yeah.
So that's, I think that I just kind of hold that dear to my heart, and I feel like you can't go wrong. Right? It can be hard sometimes, like if you have people pushing against you or whatever, but just do the right thing.
I'd add on to that, even when no one's looking.
I was just about to say that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep.
What other compromises have you refused to give into in your leadership journeys, Christine and Erika?
One principle that I continue to rally around is stay human. It's coupled to do the right thing in many aspects. If you work with me, you will know that, yes, I set a high bar. The best thing I can do is come into a room and I kind of put my feet up on the desk and we just chill. I lead with you always know who I am and where I stand. And to be honest, that wasn't always popular. That level of authenticity hasn't always been my most popular trait. But I do think it is really, really important, especially to cut through and solve issues. Just be human, be real, be willing to do that in the face of where situations may be asking you for something different. And so I think that has been something, maybe not my entire career, but at some point I decided I was not willing to compromise that.
You said that you had it wasn't always popular, right? So I'm guessing you had some pretty uncomfortable feedback at times in your career.
Yeah, I mean, I
some of that.
More than once. I mean, I do remember one situation. So I started my career in telecom manufacturing, and I worked for a gentleman who had a reputation for being difficult. And he's a great guy, and I really enjoy him now. But at that time, I was still relatively early in career, and I had done this really big thing, and it was difficult. And I came into my annual performance review thinking that I was knocking it out of the park that year.
Okay.
And the feedback that he gave to me was that he had received feedback that I was abrupt. And man, I was injured by that in so many ways because I was driving towards something, a complicated solution, and as far as I could tell, was doing exactly what my male counterparts were doing, and yet on me, it didn't feel the same.
That perception,
and I think that has stuck with me. And it's connected back to that authenticity component. I am going to laugh with you, and I am going to. I enjoy bringing joy into the workplace, and then sometimes we're going to roll up our sleeves and get stuff done. And so I am direct, and I don't think I've changed that behavior that much. What I have done is balanced that behavior with the joy. So you see the full authenticity, right? It's not always the driver. Sometimes it's the play, right? And I think that has made a difference because I'm still as direct as I was, in when it matters. And so being able to balance that spectrum, right, feels important to me as a person.
So you took on board the feedback and brought the balance.
Not on purpose. I'll tell you what did it. For a period of time, for about 10 years, my husband and I owned a motorcycle safety school where I used to teach people how to ride motorcycles. One of the principles that if you study adult learning is the way to put people at ease when they're learning something new is with humor, to kind of take the temperature down in the room. And it was actually that experience that translated, it sort of bled into my corporate life a bit, where I realized that where I was able to take the temperature down in a room where people were learning something new and intimidating, like how to ride a motorcycle and not get hurt, was equally valuable in a room where we were solving a hard technological problem or a hard political problem.
Having that psychological safety at work is really, really important, and that's a big part of it.
We need humor. We would never survive.
That's right.
Exactly. But we're at work for many hours of the day, and it adds up to a long time in our lives. Erika, what about you? And any feedback that you've received, you kind of did or?
Yeah.
on board?
Actually, absolutely the same. I almost said, are we the same person? That was, and I didn't know how to take the feedback of, you're being a bit too direct and maybe a bit defensive. And I thought, no, I'm sharing data. I'm telling you what happened. I'm giving honesty. And you talk about authenticity. Like I can only be me. I don't know how not to be me and be successful. I don't like, I just want people to be honest, be upfront. But I also recognize when I got that feedback, maybe your word used, Christine, was balance. I need to balance that with maybe also giving people recognition. Let me also tell you what's working well and not be my thought, where the way I was developed in my younger years was working with so many strong personalities, and that's how they operated. So sometimes you take on that strong characteristic, but deep down, it's still me. When I'm giving that, I'm still being authentically me. But I thought, let me just tell you what's not working, and you need to fix this. Roll your sleeves up, as you say, and let's get to work and let's fix this. I don't really want to beat around the bush, right? But there's a way to balance that out. And I didn't really know how to do that in my earlier years. I had to get a mentor. And for me, I needed a mentor to help me navigate through the situation of, how do I communicate this differently? Because I just didn't know how to do that on my own. Because deep down, I just knew I'm right. I'm not doing anything wrong here. And I see my male counterparts doing it exactly the way that I'm doing it. Why is it such a problem when I do it, right? So I did have a mentor that helped me through that, but it took a while. I wasn't letting up, so easy in the beginning, but I did internalize it a lot, and it hit hard for me because I knew that I was a hard worker. I knew that I was delivering high quality. I knew that I'm doing the job. Why is this a problem? So I would always say, and I recommend for people to have a mentor. I don't care where you are in your career and the successes that you've had. I think that it's invaluable.
It's a great point. On there's a leadership coaching technique called stepping into persona, and it actually resonated with me in a previous experience where I really felt like I had to step into my persona and almost understood it as being different people. But actually, that leadership coach, that exec coach, helped me understand that I'm me all along, right? And actually what's changing when I'm stepping into the different environments and different when I'm stepping into the different personas, actually it's the different environments that I'm stepping into that I adapt my persona accordingly, but I will always be me and don't know how else to be anyone else, right? I think that's super, super important to realize that it's the environment around you that's changing and not necessarily you, and you adapt to it as much or as little as you want to.
Just changing up your communication style. You're still delivering the same message, but it's the way that you deliver it.
And have you, as you've progressed through your leadership roles and your respective careers, have you ever felt the need to dilute any part of your personality to make that fit, either before or after you've received those kind of feedbacks? And if you did you ever get it all back?
I am very interested in solving the problem. This is what attracts me almost to every role. That's also what how I know when it's time to move on. And there are things that are just not naturally in tune with my personality. I do think that just being ready to respond to all the different moments that we're in as women, as technical leaders, as workers, as parents, right? One really important principle I align to is I can't do it alone. As much as I would like to, because I am a loner, I can't do it alone. And so I need a community of people who are going to sometimes go, hey, look over here. Or sometimes they're going to grab me by the face and go, stop what you're doing right now, right? Like you're about to fall. Trusting those people, right?
Yeah. And putting that leadership team around you and knowing what you need is part of an authentic leadership. Carrie, what about you?
I have not, I kind of touched on this before, that, and kind of like Christine was saying, as long as I am surrounded by, which I am lucky to be, good, and whether it's men or women, just good human beings
Good
right?
people.
Then I don't feel like I need to suppress anything or stifle any parts of me.
That's great.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
happy for you.
Uh,
I'm happy for you. Erika, what
the
about you?
people, the people.
Yeah, I've never felt the need to change my personality to fit in any room or situation. I am what they call an extroverted introvert. Okay. I am very chatty and talkative around those I trust. Those that I do not trust, I will give you only what I feel you need
Mhm.
to get the job done. That's it. So I'm not really one, I don't feel the need to change my personality, or even in the situations where I struggled with like certain feedback of being too direct. Like I said, I didn't really change who I was as a, as an individual, but maybe I just changed my communication style and to help me relay the message that I want. Because what I don't want is for someone's perception to be my attitude to outweigh my contribution. And so for that, I did change. And there was a time where I probably went from one end of the spectrum to the other where it was, okay, I'm trying to find out who's the person in the room that's thinking this and saying this. So maybe I didn't say as much in certain meetings, but then I came back to who I was of, this is important. What I'm trying to say is important. There's a different perspective that I don't hear in the room. So I'm going to give my perspective, whether people like that or not, right?
And good leaders want different perspectives. Good leaders want, they don't want someone who thinks the same as them, right? That's so important. Yeah.
Karen,
Well,
can I provoke maybe a different maybe because we're also not addressing maybe and maybe it's not diluting of your personality, but I do definitely feel that there have been times in my career where I've had to choose, am I a mom or am I a worker? And I know that this is something I see this happening still for women. We are now in a situation where women so often are expected to both be a breadwinner and be a mother. And I do think, minimizing that part of my personality, the mother side of me, was an ask in my early career.
yeah.
And I'm so grateful that we have capabilities that allow us to balance that. We don't have to choose between, well, many of us do no longer have to choose whether we stay home with a sick kid or whether we work. I think that I would like to see us do more there. I don't think we're done with that yet.
Oh, no.
No, I don't think we are. And I think the world of work has certainly changed post-pandemic with people being more conscious of their health and their well-being. How can you genuinely focus on building a safe environment where people can be focused on their wellness and where you're looking after yourself and you're looking after your teams, and balance that with building a resilient, high performing culture where you're optimizing, you're performing? How do you get that balance? Erika, do you have some contribution there?
I actually do. I've been working remote before the pandemic. So I learned this the hard way though. When I first started working remote from home, I didn't realize how much isolation there was going to be. I didn't really even fully understand how much more work I would be doing on a daily basis on the weekends. And because you never leave work when you work from home, I had no concept of breaks and lunch and none of that. Right. And so it's not just on your physical health, but your mental health of not doing those things. And so earlier when I first started working remote, I gave no attention to my team besides in a meeting. They didn't get the one-on-one. They didn't get the coffee break with me. They didn't get the lunch with me. So we weren't as close as we used to be prior to me starting to work remote. For me, I had to make sure that I do more team discussions. I had to do more one-on-one discussions than I ever had to do before. So that people know that they're still being seen and heard by me. They need to know that you know them as a person, not just as a resource on the team. And that continues to keep people engaged, right? They building that trust, right, between you and them. It was a hard lesson for me early on, to the point of where I was sacrificing my health to ensure, because I wanted them to know just because I'm remote doesn't mean I'm not doing the job. Like, I'm on it and I'm doing double the work, right? And that was unfortunate for me early on. But now we know that there's a way to balance that out. And we learned a lot of that once everybody became remote and that everyone had to work remote. I immediately sent my entire team, here's what I want you to do. I want you to block time for breaks. I want you to make sure that you do eat lunch. I want to make sure that you are not sitting in a chair for 6 and 7 hours straight, because those things do ruin your health. That actually brought us closer, right? Because I honestly care about my people. And I wanted to make sure that we did not lose engagement because we were remote.
Ladies, I'd like to talk about Exadel for a little bit. Erika, you're a client of Exadel. What's that partnership been like for you? And what can you share about the differences or the similarities of our organizations and how they have been working together over the years?
It's been amazing. I've always had an offshore team, but this is slightly different in a sense of community and culture. I do feel that the relationship and partnership between CCC and Exadel, we're very focused on achieving that common goal. I love the fact that of how Exadel pours into their teams, the fact that they want the teams to come here to the States and engage with us when we're doing Spotlight. I love that. It gives them the opportunity to showcase their contributions to that project. We at CCC also travel to the Exadel office, right? I was just there.
Warsaw?
Yeah.
Yes, I was just there.
Recently. How was your trip?
You guys do that.
Amazing time. I love that. I love that one-on-one. I chatted about that earlier. I love that one-on-one engagement that we have with the team. And it feels like a community. It feels like we have a common culture, even though we're thousands of miles away. And so, and the similarities are just, it's evident, again, to the point of pouring into the people, recognizing their accomplishments. The We program, like that too, we at CCC have something similar where we're pouring into the females at the company, the women at the company, so that they can be seen, they can be heard. Like that commonality between us, I think, is what allows this partnership to continue to grow. I'm talking about the engagement with the management team. It has always been one where I think they feel every person they work with at our company is as equally as important as our president. They make you feel that way. You get that type of attention. And so I can really appreciate that. And so, yeah, it's been an amazing partnership for the past few years of working with the ladies, everyone at Exadel, but especially the ladies at Exadel.
That's amazing. We love having you. Thank you.
Yep.
And I know that CCC is very committed to women's development with programs like your very own Women's Business Resource Group operating under your Diversity Advisory Council, providing that support and career education and networking opportunities for women. So we hope to see the impact of the women at Exadel ERG have the same impact here as you've had at CCC. And do you feel that having that has had a personal impact on your journey?
When I first started at CCC, and again, we're talking 25 years. So, so we didn't have this. There was no concept of a program where women could come together and relate to one another, share their experiences, talk about their pain points, and the organization hear them and try to understand where they're coming from and implement different practices or policies to address those pain points. We didn't have that. We literally had to snuff each other out and look for each other around the company and say, oh, there's a lady. Let me introduce myself. And I'm not joking. Seriously, it's like that, especially on the tech side. There are a lot of other women in the organization, but in the tech side, we didn't have that as much. And so now the fact that CCC is dedicated to understanding women and in this company and where their struggles may be, not just what's working, but what's not working, and saying, okay, how can we improve that? I love the fact that they are pouring so much into this program and really, really trying to get more and more women to participate and be a part of it. Understanding women's health and women's physical and mental health is a thing. And I want, the company is saying, hey, we want to understand more and see how we can have better programs to accommodate those things. Women, I think, I think men also learn from this program.
I'm really proud that one of our values at Exadel actually is to put your health and family first. And having just joined the company 6 months ago, 3 months in, I had a health scare, age-related health scare, and it was a little bit worrying, to be honest with you. And I just joined, and I didn't really know how I was going to be supported, but I have to say, I had the rally around me was phenomenal, and I was given all the space and time and support that I needed to get through that, get over it, and coming through that and getting to the other end and getting it all clear and, being healthy, and then sitting down with Michael, our CEO, and he says, right, let's set up Women at Exadel. You're exactly the kind of person that we want to lead it. It was just phenomenal. And I really hear what you're saying there, Erika, to be seen and be heard. It means so much. So Christine, you're also partnering with Exadel at the moment. What can you tell our listeners about that experience?
Exadel had big shoes to fill. I was a long-time partner, a decade or more long-time partner with Copi, and we had developed a very close relationship. And Copi was very good at meeting my expectations in a lot of different ways. This ability to bring the right skills at the right time to the right problem. And also be very transparent and candid with me when they thought I was going about it the wrong way. The Exadel transition felt disruptive. I was very concerned about it when I heard that this was the direction we're going. And so, you've had some things to prove. Now, with that said, sometime in, I think we've retained the things that are important. You've brought a really great group of people who challenge each other, who challenge me, who challenge my leads, who bring their brains to work every day, bring their vision and their creativity. I've been in this pattern with the Exadel team of trying to get to Seattle, every so often to sit down in a room, and they all kind of do this quick roundtable / demo day of like, here's the things we're working on in the background. Here's the things we think you should be thinking about, Christine. These are like some of my favorite moments of the quarter. Because it really shows that you all are looking out for me and you're looking out for my team in ways that only a group like you all can do, because you work horizontally across 11 different functions in my organization. So you often see things before I see them. I'm so grateful for the folks that you all have brought to bear. We have some really, really great people who are working with us each and every day and who are making us better. There are massive learning curves coming to a company like Google, because you're not experiencing things. If you're coming from Starbucks, we are doing things way differently than are happening at Starbucks or HBO or even Microsoft. And so being in a research organization or working with researchers or working with people who are experimenting, developing AI experiments as their job, that requires a set of skills and expertise. I think the team's doing a great job.
That's great. and I know that the team love partnering with you as well. But I think you touched on something there I just want to make a quick point on, which is around the Exadel prides itself on embedding itself within the client as a partner, and also with ensuring that we really listen to your problems and to what solutions you might need and the challenges that we might see together coming up. I mentioned earlier the launch of our new ERG, the We Network for Women at Exadel. Its mission is centered on visible leadership, connection, mentoring and coaching to help women grow. A lot of the things that we've spoken about today so far. And we're launching the We Network as part of our International Women's Day initiative, but it's not just for one day, it's for every day. And this year's International Women's Day theme is Give to Gain. Carrie, what would you like to say to the women at Exadel and those thinking about joining us for a career in tech or consulting about the importance of launching an initiative like this?
Our VP of engineering is a woman, which I love because that kind of showed all the women in engineering at Exadel. I think that was a huge thing for them. It proves that there are amazing career paths here, and just that our leadership, which is, we have a combination of men, we have a lot of women in leadership as well, but everyone supports and wants our voices heard and wants to make sure that our voices are in every room.
Thanks. So Google are also very active with their ERGs, Christine, like Women at Google and the Women Tech Makers community. How have you seen this develop during your time there, and what excites you about the future of women in tech?
We could spend a whole other couple hours on that question. What excites me about women in tech? One of the things that's really impressive about Google, and was impressive coming into Google after having a long career outside, is the commitment to these ERGs. Very strong women's network at Google, very strong within each product area. So there's a women at research and a women at labs. These women are powerhouses and very authentic, and also embodying kind of that spirit of bringing people along, which I really love. They're also not afraid to fight what's right, and I think that's really cool. So there's the engineering community that I grew up as a part of, but I also think there is a research community in women, women in research community that feels certain things still more acutely, maybe, right? We know that women are often still in a minority there. It manifests in different ways. I've had the chance to participate in events and kind of listen with a new set of eyes in terms of how does this show up in a different discipline like technical or technology or technological research. I think right now we are at a moment where anything goes for women, and that is incredibly exciting.
Yeah.
I don't feel limited. I feel limitless as a woman. And I think if you are a woman who is entertaining either a new technological career, or you're like me and you're making a jump from another discipline, don't be afraid of that. These experiences and these pieces of software that are being developed, they're being developed for people like us. And so it's more important than ever that we have people who are showing up and representing populations who are the next generation and the users and are reinventing, right, the future of work and the future of productivity and the future of education. Everything that I see at Google right now is exciting and can be exciting for women. I just can't wait to see what happens next.
I think it's important to recognize for a moment that in the world today, March 26th, there's a lot of women around the world that don't have the choices that we have. We have great privilege in being able to come to work and being able to do the exciting things that we do every day. And not everyone has that choice.
I'm learning about this as a leader, is we should be poking, you asked me about what is going on inside of Google, and Google has a great culture for women. It could always be better. They're working on it, but there's a strong commitment.
Yeah.
But as a leader, I can tell you that I'm starting to ask the questions of, hey, what are my partners doing? Hey, my brother's a VP of engineering for a tech company here in Austin. And I was at dinner with him last night and said, hey, what are you doing for International Women's Day? Right. And I do think like these are things that we now have. And yet, to your point, Karen, so many do not. Either in really drastic ways because they are, legal restrictions, or because there are industries and companies that still need to be brought along.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to be part of that conversation now. I feel like I can be part of that conversation now and poke and go, okay, what are you doing for the women in your company? right?
Right.
So, ladies, look, we are a few questions away from the end of our time together, but I want to know something from you. What has really been the best piece of career advice that you've ever been given, and that you think all the women out there right now listening need to know?
We struggle with this because sometimes there's this intimidation of strong personalities. And I'm going to speak for people who are similar to me in personality and being a bit more introverted. You are good enough. You don't have to be the loudest person in the room to make an impact, right? And I think that what I've always been told was just go in with confidence. Your confidence will speak louder than any other words. And so I use that to help me with the way that I think. I have to take in a lot of information. I have to think about it a little bit, and then I come back with an answer. I'm never not confident because I know what I bring to the table. And I think women need to know their worth, value. If you're already in the room, you're there for a reason. You're meant to be there. So don't be afraid to show yourself, right? Be present and give your opinions and your thoughts, because that's why you're there.
Thank you. Carrie?
I was kind of thinking that same thing. Like, we're in the room, we're already there. There's no need to prove ourselves once we're there. We deserve the respect. And yeah, that's why we're there. That's why we're here. And pay that forward as we nurture other people coming up. And I feel like Christine said, I do feel limitless. I don't, you know what I mean? I don't feel limited. I feel like it's up to me, which is, yeah, we're lucky for that, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Christine, I'm going to use that as a tagline, by the way. I made a mental note.
Hashtag limitless.
I won't tell you for that. Yeah.
And Christine, you talked about some of the amazing women that you've had the opportunity to work with throughout your career. What piece of career advice have you been given that really you want to get out there to women now that are moving on up in their career or entering leadership roles like you, and you want them to know and you want them to understand?
I was thinking about what you said, Karen, about, you know, the place we are. I do feel like I'm in a very privileged space in my life where it's easy for me to say we're limitless, right? And yet I remember being in my 20s and being a mom and of young children, and recognizing that I didn't feel limitless then. There's probably a lot of women who are like, yeah, okay, that's great for you because you're here. How do I do that?
Mm-hmm.
There were some pivotal pieces of advice that came to me when I was that person, from people, and people that, I didn't necessarily expect. But, I think about, like, there was a woman that I worked with. She wasn't necessarily more senior than me, but at that time she was a woman in tech and I was a woman in finance, learning how to be a woman in tech. And I just was in awe of her, right? I was in my early 20s. I remember sitting with her one night. It was very late. We were working on some project, some technical software project together. I as the business owner, her as the technical brains. And I was like, how do you navigate? Like, how do you navigate this? How do you navigate the world that you live in every day? And she was like, one thing I've gotten really good at is being able to read the room.
Important.
And being able to anticipate the people in the room. And that has saved my bacon.
Right.
And I think that's something that I have carried forward. And that still serves me today. And it served me then as well. Because if I could think about what are if I could think about and feel like, okay, I understand who I'm approaching. I can think about in advance the questions they're going to ask me. I can try to anticipate and think through my answers, right? Then all of a sudden that disarms the paralyzing fear that an introvert like me has of failure, right? Because my number one fear back then was I'm going to fail or I'm going to make a fool of myself, because my children depended upon my income and my ability to pay my bills. So failure was not an option. And yet I was terrified that I was going to fail. And it's unrealistic that you're not going to fail. And so I think the one best piece of advice that I still carry today that feels authentic to the person that I was 25 years ago or more is that, right? My best superpower was when I learned how to read the room and meet the moment. And that has carried me in so many different ways. That has carried me in conversations with my employees, in conversations with my leaders, in different types of leadership situations, because the number one thing it does is it diffuses my own fear.
Mhm.
I can feel confident about my approach, and I can feel competent in a room where I might be the most junior person, or I might be the only woman. And so that is what I would say to women who might be in that moment, is just anticipate as much as you can. That's the key to unlocking your fear. And then you too can feel limitless.
And you can read the room. But today I'm asking the questions. But last week I was on our internal podcast, series 2 actually, called Leadership Lounge, and I was asked this very same question of what piece of career advice have I been given that I think women ought to know, and that I want to share with the women at Exadel. And actually I gave a very similar answer about reading the room, but also that actually there's a point where you need to know that maybe being quiet is just as important as speaking up. And knowing when to do which,
Very true,
is crucial. It's critical. So yeah, I'm 100% with all of those. So thanks for sharing those. When all of this world of work and jumping onto Google Meets and Teams calls and getting together with people to make amazing products, when it's all over and done, and you close the laptop for the last time, what's the one legacy you really want to leave behind that outlasts all the success, all the money, all the accolades, all the letters after your name, all the fancy products and dollar signs in the bank account? Like, what do you want to leave as a legacy? Erika, I'm going to come to you first.
That's a great question. You know what? I am not one to think about me first. I never have been. I'm driven, but I'm never more focused on me. So what I really want people to, I'll say, remember is how passionate, dedicated I was, right? But also understanding that I was always willing to jump in, help and support others in achieving their goals. Because if they're achieving theirs, I'm achieving mine. I love mentoring. It is the satisfaction of my job in my later years. Pay it forward. I had great mentors along the way that have poured so much into me. And I'm so ever grateful and thankful for the tips that they've given me, or just being a sounding board to me. So I try to do that for others. And that's what I think is what I would want people to remember.
Thank you. And I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will. Carrie, what about you?
I would say outside of work, obviously, at the end of the day, that's what's important. Health, family. I heard the other day someone said, you have a million problems until you have a health problem, then you have one problem. Or, until your child has a problem, or you know what I mean? So health and family, definitely. I always try to be willing to support others and be there, jump in. I never stay in my own lane in terms of, there's some people that I'm like, I don't do that. I do this. I'm like, sure, I can help you do that. I'm one of those people. So I think that's kind of one of the things that I've prided myself on, and I hope gets noticed.
Definitely does. And Christine, what do you want your legacy to be when you're done with all of this?
Yeah, I mean, certainly goes without saying that my legacy is my children. They're almost fully grown, all of them, and they're all incredibly diverse personalities. I'll leave it at that. Great women and beautiful humans. It is surprising because I just spent, I don't know how much time talking about how exciting it is at Google right now and all the great stuff we're building, and AI is exciting and the future of work is exciting. And yet that's not why I come to work anymore. I am interested in the evolution of the state of the art. And I appreciate the transformation that is happening right in front of us each and every day with technology. But I know that the people that I work with and who are going to come after me are my legacy in terms of whether that is tied to how they show up in a room, how they put together solutions for problems, how they anticipate the next step or the next big challenge, how they plan their own careers and execute on those steps fearlessly. Those are the things that are going to sustain. A couple years ago, my dad turned 80. And a bunch of people came in reflecting upon like pictures and people talking about my father and, his legacy had everything to do with who he is and how he shows up for people. And I was just so overwhelmed in that moment. Both of my parents are sort of these forces of, ripple effect on people. And I was like, okay, yes, this is why we're here. This is why so yeah, that's my legacy. And that's why I come to work. It is so cool. It is the best thing that I get to enjoy as a leader is watching my organization succeed and do hard things.
Well, ladies, thank you so much. The very last question. Favorite podcast recommendation for our listeners? Quick fire rounds. Carrie, do you have one?
Oh gosh, I'd love to say I listen to like professional podcasts and things. I don't. Right now, I've been listening to, very random, Monica Lewinsky has a podcast called Reclaiming, and she interviews a bunch of really interesting people, and I'm enjoying that.
Thank you. Christine, what's your recommendation?
The We Can Do Hard Things podcast is still an all-time favorite of mine. I love listening to Glennon Doyle and Amanda and Abby.
I love Glennon Doyle.
And talk about force of women and proving what women are capable of. That's still a default. That's a go-to for me.
Brilliant. Erika, what have you got?
When I listen to podcasts, it's so unrelated to work. Like that's my area of entertainment. So it's probably a podcast and a random TED Talk or those things. And we're maybe just something that piqued my interest as I scroll, but I don't have a favorite.
All right. Well, we're going to have to find out next time what's behind the scenes on Erika's podcast list. So, thank you. If this conversation moved the needle for you, please share it with just one other woman who's currently building her own legacy. I'm Karen Hutchison. I'll see you next time.